careful what you say now, because we are live.
I'll be a good boy.
Okay. So just going to wait till 10 a.m. and we will go live at that time. And as you can see, the guest on the screen, I know we're covered in red, but that's the countdown timer. Just give us a few minutes. And we have at least one guest watching. So leave a comment. Let us know who it is. I'll give you a shout out.
I did tell a couple of people we were doing this, so.
Well, I actually put it on social yesterday as well.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So we might just get a view or two.
Cool.
But it was an interesting conversation we were having earlier in the week. So let's see how that goes. And I know I've got Summit Risk Solutions. Oh, it is hello, John and Chris from SUD.
Hey, SUD. Well, if SUD can hear us, Kimberly is beating him up.
Uh-oh, Kimberly's beating him up.
Yeah, so in a PMTC conference, there's a game section, and Kimberly is just whooping him points-wise.
Whoops, what the heck is this? Oh, and Ready Check has joined us. I'm really screwing this thing up this morning here. Ready Check. Good morning, Chad or Michelle. Oh, it's Chad. Chad's online with us. So good morning, Chad. Good morning, Sud. And Sud, I'll share this with you in just 1 second here.
Okay.
I'm going to take that. So there it is. It says 0 now. I'll take that off the screen, and let me do a welcome here. I'll come in and, hey, welcome. We are live on the podcast, the Doggone It Trucking Podcast. Forgot what show I was doing. We're live today, and not many people have the courage to join me live on YouTube. Andrea Morley of Healthy Trucker has done it in the past, and this week, a returning guest who also has a great deal of courage, Mr. John Farquhar from Summit Risk Solutions. Good morning, John.
Good morning, Chris. Good morning.
Hey, first of all, let me drag these things here. Can I do that? There. So there's hello from SUD. And now that's in my way. You probably can't, hopefully you can't see all that.
No, I don't see that.
Way. And I will give a shout out here to Chad as well at Ready Check. Now I want to know how do I get rid of these things? I put them on the screen, and hopefully I can figure out how to get rid of them.
Yeah. That was a good podcast with Chad and Michelle. I like that one.
Well, there. I'm glad you listened. So you,
of course.
Not only can't I get rid of it, I can't move it either.
Is that why we're in the doghouse?
We must be in the doghouse here. So while I'm trying to figure that out, John, I just want to bring our listeners up to speed here. So John and I had a brief conversation earlier in the week, and I'm going to bring John on by himself for a second while I try to figure out how to remove the comments. But his comments about, I asked him what I thought was kind of an innocent question. John, what do you think's happening because of COVID in the trucking industry? And his thoughts, I said, John, you got to come on the show. So with that, John, let me ask you again, what changes have you seen, or what long-term effects have you seen from COVID on the trucking industry? What are your thoughts?
Well, I guess probably one of the big things I'm seeing is a lack of accountability. You know, when you're looking at a motor carrier and the things that they're supposed to be doing, they're not quite doing what they should be. And the problem there, how do I want to say this? I just want to try to say, their feet are not being held to the fire, right? So when you've got something going on, and they're not paying attention to what they should be doing because nobody's holding them accountable. law enforcement, for instance, MTO and whatnot, are just not as present as they used to be prior to the pandemic. When you and I had conversed there, we had talked about the insurance guys, the risk guys that come out to see the companies and talk to the motor carriers. That's just not happening. It's more of a telephone call or maybe a video call. So you're not having that interaction that kept these carriers motivated to make sure that their safety programs were up to snuff and moving forward.
Yeah, and the reason I think that's so important is there are changes about to happen as we get out of this COVID thing. The insurance companies are going to start showing up at your door again.
Oh yeah. Yep.
What do you think's going to happen when they are no longer doing their reviews on Zoom and actually knocking on the doors? What's going to happen then?
Well, I think what you're going to see is if you were, say, even last year, the last time you had a visit, and if you haven't had a visit or conversation from your risk or safety person from the insurance side, they're going to be looking for what have you done? And if you've not done anything, if you've not progressed further, they're going to start to question, well, if you can't do this without my help all the time, then the question is going to be, why should we continue to insure you? So underwriters are going to get quite concerned because, well, if my guy has to go out and always be on these guys to get their recommendations completed, get their safety features into play, they're going to be like, well, do we really want them as a customer? You're supposed to be responsible on your own. You shouldn't need the risk guys from the insurance company to come tell you what you need to do.
Yeah, and John, explain to the listeners and the viewers briefly what's your background and what makes you an authority when you're talking about insurance and stuff like what we're talking about here.
Yep. So I'm just shy of 18 years in the insurance industry. So it was back 2006-ish, 2005, 2006, where I transitioned from transportation risk management. I had my own consulting firm back then and started working for a very large global insurer with transportation risk, and progressed myself up into becoming a manager across Canada for a team of risk professionals that would do just what we're talking about, going out and working with their clients. And then I worked with those guys for just over 7 years, and then switched to another insurance company where we built a bigger and better program and carried on with the same process. So, for the last 16, 17 years, I've worked directly with insurance companies and customers. And it's been about what can we do to help you? But at the same time, you have to help yourself.
Yeah, and John, I'm seeing the exact same thing where these people, they think because they're not being reviewed as closely as they once were, they're letting things slide.
Yes.
And I really think it's going to be devastating for some companies. Some are going to get away with it virtually unscathed, but others, they're going to pay a dear price.
Exactly. And this is not everybody by all means. I've been working with a couple of clients that are like, no, I need to do better. I don't want to slip. I want my insurance company to know that I'm being progressively active in my safety management programs. But there are some that are like, I'm not worried about it right now. No, I need to get these drivers hired. And it's like, but you're dropping your guard. You're letting your protocols go and not keeping your standards up. It's just going to come back to bite you. The old phrase is going to be, you can pay me now, or you can pay me 3 times as much later.
It's kind of like preventative maintenance. If you don't do it, you end up paying 2-3 times more for the same repair on the road.
Yeah, and that 2 to 3 times from a motor carrier from an insurance perspective could be in premiums, or it could be, you know what, they're just going to cancel or non-renew.
Yeah, and canceling, of course, puts you in facility. And John, what are I know you're no longer in the insurance side of things, but facility rates? Do you have an idea? One of my friends who's an underwriter always expresses it as a multiple of normal rates, but do you have an idea what facility rates are currently?
I've actually heard from a couple of insurance brokers that I work closely with, and they're seeing anywhere from $60,000 to $80,000 per power unit for somebody that's going to the U.S.
Yeah.
That's outrageous.
I had a client that was at $70,000 per unit for an annual.
I don't know how anybody could sustain that. Like, there's not enough margin in the trucking industry as it is right now. Now you take and go from, maybe 15 to 20,000 a power unit on up to 70. How's that possible?
Well, in my opinion, the only way it's possible is to cheat. Somebody's being shortchanged somewhere. And of course, we know that there are changes coming to the facility market. Some changes have already happened, and there's more coming to make it more accountable, I think is
sure, exactly. Correct. It's a good word.
Yeah. So what would you suggest that carriers do moving forward to prevent their insurance company, the safety people from those damn insurance companies, being upset with them? Well, both of us being former in that role, we can call them what they are.
Exactly. The big thing is own it. Own your responsibility. It's not the insurance company's responsibility to come out and tell you what you need to be doing. If you're in the trucking industry, it's like any industry that you're in. You need to know the rules and regulations of how to operate within that environment. So own it.
Yeah. And Ready Check, Chad says, I agree 100%. John, take care of your books now to save and make it easier later. Thanks, Chad.
Yes. Yep. Awesome, Chad.
And by the way, Nelson was on. I don't know if you saw, I threw Nelson's comment up as well. And he just says, hey, nice to see you guys. He's being polite because he probably knew I was going to throw it on the screen. But
he just knows who the good looking people are.
So have we beat that subject up enough, do you think, that in your opinion, and I'm in 100% agreement with you, people are letting their safety efforts slide a little bit, and they're going to get caught in the short term because as we get out of COVID, the safety people from the insurance companies are going to return to on-site visits.
Yep. So interesting enough, I had a conversation with one of my clients yesterday, and he has been of the mindset, when the work comes in, add more trucks, find more drivers, add more trucks, find more drivers. And it's just been a huge undertaking for their orientation program, hiring and whatnot. And interesting enough, it's just bottlenecked them in their safety department. They can't handle it. So they've been letting their guard down, right? So in the conversation yesterday, he realized this is hurting him. And he's put the brakes on. He threw the anchor out of the boat and said, okay, you know what? We got to relook at this. So he's pulling back. He's going to get rid of some of his older trucks. He's going to let some of his bad drivers go. And they're going to step up and own this better. And at the same time, he informed me, he's looking at all his lanes of travel. And he's about 180 power units. He's looking at his lanes of travel and going, what's profitable, what's not? And he's going to look at firing some customers.
Interesting. Firing customers. What a novel concept. And right now I understand trucking is fairly good at the moment. Even though we're in COVID, the trucking industry, most of my clients say, hey, they're about the same or up a little bit from the times prior to COVID.
Yes, I've heard the same thing.
Yeah, so things aren't too bad.
No.
Any other pieces of advice before I throw a conversation in that I didn't tell you we were going to have?
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, so perfect. I love that stuff. Make it all improv. But yeah, I want to add one more point here because when you ask, have we beat this to death yet? Not yet, because there's something else that they need to realize. These motor carriers need to wake up and realize it's just not the insurance company and it's just not law enforcement that's coming after them. It's the courts. And I know the nuclear verdict thing has been beat to death. I'm not worried about that because we can manage that. But one of the big things that's really coming out right now, lawyers are using this against you. The plaintiff lawyers are using this against the defense. And it's the basis of, are you operating with safety over profits, or are you profits over safety? So in the case of this client that I was just mentioning, he previously was profits over safety. Now he's realized I can't manage it properly and it's hurting me. It's causing me pain with my CVOR scores, my SMS profiles. And he's realized I got to pull back because I need to better manage the safety program. And when I do that, I will profit better. But when if you're the type of carrier that's going, you know what, it's a great time right now. I need to add more trucks and I'm going to shortchange hiring those drivers. I'm just going to get those trucks filled. Well, then your focus is on profit, not safety.
Yeah. And sorry, I just want to have that yellow truck go by you there. But yeah, profits and not safety is short term.
Yes, exactly. Not a long-term program.
Yeah. And so you mentioned safety. One of the things that I want to make sure people know about, and I'll put a link in the show notes shortly after we get off this, is the online CVOR. I know you know about it. You can now, just for people to know, well, hey, I'll throw it over to you. What have you seen this new online CVOR? It's what, 2 weeks, 3 weeks old?
Just seen one here 2 days ago for the first time. I got a copy of it from a client that needs a little help, and I had asked for a copy of their CVR, which is in fabulous shape by means. But it was really cool to see it. But I only saw a PDF version. So apparently you're able to get an electronic version where you can download it into an Excel or something. I didn't get to see that portion of it.
Yeah, the new thing is really cool. I was fortunate. I was on a webinar and MTO did a short demo of it. And you can get your whole level 2 CVOR online. It's virtually up to date. MTO stated that if you have a truck inspection today, it should be on your CVOR level 2 tomorrow. Like,
wow.
And the calculations are recalculated, everything.
Wow.
So, and it's free. So, which, by the way, I don't understand. I know it was always going to be free, but because of our COVID situation and the dollars all the governments have spent, I can't imagine it being free forever. I do see a subscription. Well, I just see a subscription service.
Sure,
let's say
sense.
It's $5 a month. Right. I think every carrier would subscribe at $5 a month. It's not a lot of revenue, but it's a little bit. But what I want everyone to understand is your level 2 CVOR is now online and it's up to date. It's flipping awesome. So I just wanted to throw that out there. Last subject I wanted to throw at you.
Sure.
June the 12th.
Yes, sir.
A date there, June the 12th, 2021. Oh, sorry. Before we go on, John, I got a question in the comments here. So I'll throw this on the screen from Ready Check. Chad, I believe it's either Chad or Michelle, but I think Chad was the one that signed in this morning, says, could you quickly explain nuclear verdict?
Nuclear verdict, yes. So nuclear verdict is a term, and it's more geared towards the U.S. than it is Canada. But it can involve a Canadian motor carrier, particularly if you run to the U.S. So nuclear verdict is a court reward that is much larger than normal. So kind of the thought is anything that goes 10 million plus is usually a nuclear type verdict. It just, but it's, something that's a couple million is not really a nuclear verdict, because bodily injury, environmental spills, something like that could very easily go a couple million. But usually if it goes well over policy limits, and probably the majority of the motor carriers we know of are probably carrying about 5 million, or should be. Anything over that is going to get pushing that nuclear verdict. But the rule is anything over 10 mil of a reward is going to be classified as a nuclear verdict. And the trick is, it's not this something that happens on a regular basis. This is more outside the norm. And it's because the plaintiff lawyers have done a really good job at convincing the jury somebody needs to be rewarded because this motor carrier is just really, really bad at what they do. And you don't necessarily have to be bad at what you do. You could be pretty good, but one thing goes sideways and the plaintiff lawyers will just chew on that for hours and convince the jury they're a bad company.
Well, it was you. And by the way, I just threw another comment up here. Sud says, I know that John is very passionate about road safety, and nuclear verdicts is always something that scares everyone. Talk a little bit on that. So I think you've just achieved that goal. I just wanted to throw out there that you pointed me in the direction of Joe Fried. Joe Fried,
Yep.
And what was the girl's name? Sorry.
Cassandra Gaines.
That's it.
Yep.
Cassandra Gaines. And she had a wonderful talk with Joe Fried. Was it Fried?
Fried.
Joe Fried,
yep.
Who is a prosecuting attorney in the trucking world. And I think, if I remember, he said he charges or earns $3,000 an hour, something crazy like that.
He's big, yeah.
But his comment that stuck with me is that he's never seen a nuclear verdict when the trucking company comes to the courthouse and says, I'm sorry, we screwed up. What do I owe?
Yep, exactly.
It's always when they fight and say, it wasn't my fault. Anyways.
Yep, so true.
I'm glad you addressed those two things. By the way, Chad says, thanks, John. Chad from
Anytime.
Ready Check. So, and you answered Sud's question as well.
Yep.
June the 12th, 2021. Yes. June the 12th, 2022.
That's in the past, isn't it? Isn't that gone already?
Yeah. And John, how many, so June the 12th, 2021 is the day the federal mandate came into effect for electronic logging devices or ELDs. John, how many logging devices have been approved so far? Oh.
Zero.
John, can you explain to me then, if we have a new law that we have to have logging devices, ELDs in our trucks, but there aren't any approved, how do I meet the law?
You don't.
Oh, okay.
You don't. Yeah. Now, with that said, the sad part is, so again, another customer visit I had this week, and this was a topic, was the ELD, and they run, this division runs mostly Canada. And they turned on the ELDs that they're using to operate in the US. So the US division is running, I believe it's Samsara, which is said that they're going to be approved, but not approved yet. It hasn't come through the system, but they're saying, no, we are in the system. We are going to be approved. But nonetheless, this operation said, we're going to take a step forward and we're going to implement a device that we know works and helps our US division, and we're going to implement it on our Canadian division across the board. And it was funny because they got a lot of slack from some of their competitors and peers in the industry going, oh, you're crazy. You should just keep running paper logs. And you don't need to worry about it because you're not going to get a ticket or anything. And it's interesting because based on the conversation we'd had, probably a month ago, it was suggested as a best practice, implement your ELDs. Get your drivers used to them, because if this is a provider that you plan on using when it comes out the approved side, you're going to be ahead of the game.
Yeah.
And there's no law that says you can't use a non-approved ELD provider because, well, there's nothing to say that they're approved yet.
Yeah. And the other part, John, is why do we in trucking so often go to the lowest standard instead of stepping up and setting the bar high and going beyond what's required?
Yep. Well, it's called profit.
Yeah. And I agree with you. I think Samsara, I think all the big boys, and, I'll name a few, Isaac, Samsara, Geotab, Keep Trucking, PeopleNet. I think all of them, I haven't had conversations with all of them. I've had conversations with some of them. They've all submitted. They all believe that they're going to be approved. Fleet Complete, I saw a social media blast recently that they've rolled out what they believe to be a compliant Canadian ELD to all of their trucks. That it's still in beta, and they call it. From what I read, it was in beta only because it's not approved yet, and so. But they believe it's their belief that what they submitted will be approved, and they've already rolled it out. So they would appear to be ready. And as I say, I believe I had a conversation this week with Geotab, and they expect, they're quite confident that they're going to be approved. Keep Trucking, I've had a conversation again this week, and they are extremely confident. And so anyways, my point would be to all the carriers out there, start testing.
Yeah. I actually got a new client that I met here this week, and giving them a hand with some insurance recommendations. And one of the things is he's switching from his current ELD provider to a new one. And yet neither one of them are approved. But interesting enough, and I questioned him on this. I said, well, I'm glad you're happy with the provider that you're going to go with, because they're going to marry in a dash camera to go with it, a cloud-based dash camera, which I thought, excellent. But I said, the contract that you signed, do you have an escape clause in there that says in the event they don't get approved, can you get out of the contract? And sure enough, in the contract was an escape clause that said, yeah, if we don't get approved by Transport Canada, the contract's null and void and you get your money back.
Awesome. And that's one of the things that I tell everybody is make sure you've got an escape clause. And if you're wondering why I'm looking over here, I'm looking at one of my other screens to figure out why my sound effect didn't play. And I will figure that out in just a second, because I know why it didn't play. I've got it muted. And I'll have to figure that out. But I've got another question, and I'll throw this on the screen here. Andrew Westwood. Thanks, Andrew, for the comment. When is hard enforcement date coming? When is hard enforcement date for Canadian ELDs? Whoops. John, do you know when the hard enforcement date is?
June 12th, 2022.
Yes. Now, one thing that I'm wondering about, quite honestly, they've said, what was the word? Educational enforcement or progressive enforcement?
Soft and educational enforcement.
Okay. Is it clear that, well, when I first read that, I thought, okay, they're being very clear. They're not going to write a ticket for the next 12 months.
Right.
Which is really good. I've seen in some provinces, though, where they've stated starting January the 1st, this is in Ontario, by the way, not in Ontario, but starting January the 1st, they will start writing infractions that could affect your national safety code number. And Ontario's statement, I think, and listen to my words, I think it was clear, but there's kind of a little thing in there. I'm not 100% sure. I wish they would come out and say, we are not going to affect your CVOR until June the 12th of 22. It wasn't.
I think that would handcuff them too much, I think, if they said that.
Yeah. So anyway, it may happen. That's one of the areas that I'm worried about as well. So if I could add to that, one of the things that motor carriers need to pay attention to is it's provincial regulations that are not provincial enforcement that is saying they are going to do the soft and educational process. The federal law says June 12th, 2021, you got to put the ELD in place. So I know there's none available right now, but as they start to trickle out and come out of the approval process and say the device that you're using, let's just say as an example, Samsara. So if you're using Samsara already in the US and you're going to implement it for all your trucks and it comes out next week as approved, well then as per the federal law, you should be getting that in right now. Right.
So the concern is here, not the provincial enforcement, but holy crap, what happens if we get into a really bad crash in New Brunswick and we're not using an approved ELD device because we're still thinking, I don't need it, I'll just do paper, but it's proven that you have that approved device in your fleet elsewhere, guaranteed a plaintiff lawyer is going to have a heyday. And is it worth it? Yes.
There, see, I got my sound effects working.
That'll work.
There. So, absolutely right. It's the law.
Yeah.
What the hell is the plaintiff's attorney going to do if you are not complying with the law?
Right.
Great thoughts. John,
Yep.
we're already hitting, I can't believe that we've already hit like 30 minutes and 22 seconds.
Wow,
My
we're doing good.
God. All right, this has been great.
It has.
Last thoughts.
Mhm.
Uh-oh.
You know what? No. It's work. It's work with your safety department. Listen to your safety professionals. Whether you have a team of professionals in-house or whether you're using a safety consultant, risk management consultant such as Chris or myself, listen to them. Pay attention. What you do now will save you a lot of grief, particularly with your insurance company and most importantly with the courts.
Yay.
I like it.
That was well said, John. Thanks so much for having the courage to come on the show live.
Oh, anytime. Love it. Love it. Anytime. Love doing it. You know what? When I can hang out with the Safety Dawg in the doghouse, that's a good day.
It is a great day. And Chad says, time flies. Chad of Ready Check says, time flies when you're having fun. And we are, or at least I was. Thanks, John.
Yep, that was good. I do. Well, thanks for having me.
Hey, not a problem. And with that, let's say the Safety Dawg's out.